Hello and welcome to FPL Mates, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2020-21 season. My name is Dan and today we have part 2 of the very ambitious attempt to predict every single starting 11 of every single team in the whole of Euro 2020 in hopes that it will help you pick the best players for fantasy and avoid the players that might not necessarily play very many minutes and stuff like that. It's gonna be pretty accurate, hopefully pretty accurate. I think I'll probably get things about 90% right, but I will often miss like the odd thing if there's something very obscure like the Macedonian centre-back, which has just been announced as injured in the last 2 hours. There might be little mistakes like that, but hopefully we're like 90% there. Loads of research has gone into this, so all support is massively appreciated. Like the video, subscribe if you're new around here, of course, and check out the other part if you haven't done already. So yeah, I really appreciate it, and the graphics as well. This is taking a long time, but yeah, we've got some big teams: England, Spain, Germany, Portugal, France. So many big teams in this video. So let's crack on. So why not start off with a controversial one? I know a lot of people viewing this video will be from England, so you may have some varying opinions on how you think England should set up, and that's perfectly fine. Now, what I've tried to do here is put my own feelings aside and try and be just as objective as possible and try and, I guess, predict what I think Gareth Southgate will do, what the manager will do. And the same with every single team. I'll try to put my own opinions on the team aside and how I think he'll line up. And I do think Southgate does like Trippier, so that's why he's at left back. I think Chilwell will be preferred to Shaw, even though perhaps I would go for Shaw instead of Chilwell. And I do think that Sancho and Sterling are going to line up as the wingers. Obviously, Jordan Henderson, he's very likely to be injured for at least the first game. I've kind of tried to make all the teams assuming that players are fit, so this is relevant for more than just the first match day, right? But yeah, maybe Jude Bellingham comes in for the first game instead of Henderson, and then maybe not sure after that. Maybe Henderson can come back in. But I think this is going to be the main starting 11. Obviously, it's anyone's guess who's going to be the right back, but I think this is going to be very close to how England are going to line up. And players that you might be interested out of this team, I guess, you know, the defenders are quite expensive, so I probably wouldn't be looking there. Harry Kane is obviously a fantastic shout in any game, so definitely consider him. And Mason Mount I really like as well. And you know what, if you want to go for Bellingham for the first game as well, I wouldn't blame you for that either. But those are the players I'd be looking at really. Just Kane and Mount would be the two main guys from this England team that I like the look of. Now for Croatia, who I think are going to line up in a very similar formation to England with some different players. Obviously, maybe Kovacic is not going to be available for the first game or second game maybe. Might put in Vlasic there instead in the first game. We're not 100% sure. There's so much up in the air at the moment. We don't know. It's a race against time for a lot of players, I know. But this is how I think Croatia are going to set up. And because they've got a fairly good group in games against Czech Republic and Scotland, okay, the England game is a little bit tough for them. But after that, there is going to be some opportunities here. So Barisic there, for example, 4.5 million for a quite attacking left back there, who's had a really good season as well at club level. So I think he could do pretty well. And aside from that, it may be, you know, if Kovacic is going to play in those advanced positions for 6 million, that is a good price. The only problem is he's not really a player who scores a lot of goals. Or maybe he doesn't get a lot of assists either. Maybe a kind of a second assist kind of guy. But it's a really good price for him, nevertheless. Kramaric at 6.5 million is really good for a, you know, a main striker for a top team. And Perisic is obviously always a good shout. You know, Perisic could even potentially play at striker himself. You're never really 100% sure how things are going to line up, but it's going to look something like this for Croatia. On to Scotland now, and Scotland was actually a really difficult one to predict just because there has been so many choppings and changes. Now, there's a few things I am confident about, and that is Tierney at the left centre-back position and Robertson in the left mid position, I guess, left wing-back, whatever you want to call it. I think O'Donnell is very likely to play at right wing-back as well. But after that, it gets pretty difficult. Dykes has been playing a lot of football. Christie's been playing a lot of football for Scotland and doing really well. So, you know, although, you know, part of me says, okay, maybe we should put Stuart Armstrong in there at the central attacking midfield spot. You know, Christie has just been playing well and played a lot of games for Scotland, so it's very difficult to take him out. But I do think that this probably represents Scotland's strongest 11, and it was very difficult. So I'm not fully confident with this one. And maybe some of you guys, if you are from Scotland and you are a big fan of Scottish football, maybe in the comments you could help us out with is this about right? Would you make 1 or 2 changes to this? Would you make any tweaks to this? But I do think it's going to be very roughly like this, based on the friendly matches that Scotland have played, some of their, other tournament games, qualifying games, etc., etc. It's going to look something like this. In terms of players I'm interested in, I can't lie, I'm not too interested in many of these players. Obviously, they do have some really talented defenders in there in Tierney and Robertson, but problem is, Tierney's playing a fairly deep role. I know he probably will get up the pitch still, but he's playing a fairly deep role. And Robertson, is a defender for Scotland, and Scotland, unfortunately, are going to concede goals. So, whilst their attacking output is fantastic, you do kind of want, for 5.5 million, you kind of do want a good chance of a clean sheet as well in there. McTominay, pretty defensive player. McGinn could be interesting, but he's quite expensive. Christie, if he can continue with the form that he's shown for Scotland over the last 10 games or so, then yeah, absolutely, might be worth a punt if you fancy him. And as for the strikers, not sure. They are very good priced, but I'm not 100% sure how many goals they're going to get. I don't think they're going to have a lot of goals this tournament, so we'll see, I guess. And we're going to finish off Group C with Czech Republic, who will line up in a 4-2-3-1 formation. Obviously, a very popular formation. And I actually wrote this team down before Czech Republic had played their last friendly, because I've been obviously working on this video and the previous video for quite some time. A lot of time has gone into these videos. And I predicted this lineup before they played their last friendly, and then when they played their friendly, they lined up incredibly similar to this. So for that reason, I think I probably pretty much nailed this one. I think this looks pretty good. I do think it's going to be something like this. Maybe Derrida could maybe play at central attacking midfielder if Barak was going to be dropped, and maybe another central defensive midfielder comes in. If it's a more difficult game against maybe Croatia or England, maybe Derrida plays actually the attacking midfielder and they play a bit more of a defensive formation. But aside from that, it's going to look something like this. Now, Callas, I think, is going to come in at centre-back. I did have someone else written down originally, but apparently they're injured or they didn't make the squad for whatever reason, but I can't remember the name of the player now. But they were playing a lot of games for Czech Republic, but unfortunately they didn't make the make the squad for whatever reason. So Callas seems to be the most obvious replacement in there. So yeah, this is kind of what I think it's going to look like. Now, good value in the defence, maybe Borrell at 4.5 million. You might want to have a look at that. Maybe I know a lot of you guys will want to go for Soucek, but I'm not sure how Soucek is going to play in this Czech Republic team. I don't know if they're going to be he's going to be as attacking as he has been in certain times in the Premier League, but he's certainly one of their attacking output players. Soucek, Derrida has got some attacking output there, and obviously Patrick Schick as well is got some good attacking pedigree. Slightly too expensive for me though, I think, Patrick Schick, and he's not 100% nailed anyway. So yeah, this is going to be what the Czech Republic's team looks like though. Time for España, 4-3-3 formation, and a few little interesting tidbits, I guess, in this team. So, first of all, the defenders are going to be Torres and Laporte in the middle there. Laporte obviously doing the nice switch over from France, and now he's Spanish, and he's hopefully going to do really well for them. I do think Albert is going to play at left back, although obviously Gaia has a very good chance of starting there as well. But Albert is the higher, the more prestigious player, I guess. The interesting thing I wanted to point out though is that Marcus Llorente is actually going to be playing as a right back for this Spain team. I know naturally he's a midfielder, he's played kind of all over the place really, he's quite a versatile player, fair play to him, but he is going to be playing in that right back position, and the problem is with picking him, and I know he's a really good price at 5 million, the problem is you're paying for a defender who can't get your 4 clean sheet points. The big thing about getting a defender is getting your 4 clean sheet points, right? Llorente, despite playing in defence, can't even get those points. Only gets 1 point for a clean sheet. So it kind of defeats the purpose of having a defender if they're listed as a midfielder, right? So wouldn't be interested in there. Obviously, Busquets, too defensive. Koke, probably too defensive. Thiago, I don't know. I always see him as not necessarily a goal scorer, not necessarily the man to make the direct assist necessarily. So I don't know if these are big point scoring players. But Torres, Olmo, definitely interested in those. I know a lot of you guys are going to be screaming at your screens right now. Oh my god, why have you put Morata there? Surely Moreno is going to play. A lot of you guys are very invested in 6.5 million forward Moreno. You think, he's definitely got to start for Spain. He's done fantastic. He's had a really good season. Surely he has to start for Spain, and you get a quality 6.5 million striker. And obviously that would be amazing if we could have a gem that that good. 6.5 million. He must be the most commented about player in the Euros. Every third comment in my videos is about Moreno. Is he going to play? I really like him. I think he's a hidden gem. But the fact is, and like I said, guys, I've tried to be as objective as possible to try and give you guys the best advice. Morata has been playing far more often for Spain than Moreno, and that doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. And it's not like Morata's had a bad season himself. He's actually had a pretty good season as well, and I do think he fits the system that Spain are trying to go for a little bit more. So obviously I would love it if Moreno started and was banging in goals for 6.5 million. That would be amazing. But realistically, he's not going to be playing every game. Moreno maybe plays starts one out of the three group games, and maybe a couple of sub appearances as well. But it's not really what we want. Really, I think we're looking for some slightly more nailed on players. Torres and Olmo much nicer to me in terms of Spain's attacking players. And obviously, Torres 4.5 million is a really good price for Pau Torres there. And Simon as well, 5 million for the Spain goalkeeper. Yeah, maybe some people think Sanchez might play. I do think it's going to be Simon. But yeah, there are some very good, nice players in there without having to go for Gerard Moreno. Okay, so this is what Sweden are going to look like when they line up a 4-4-2. Pretty rare in this tournament. I think they're the only team in the entire tournament that is likely to run with a 4-4-2 formation. So, it's a real throwback, a real classic formation. I do like it. But yeah, this is kind of what they'll look like. I think this is mostly going to be correct. Obviously, Olsen is the goalkeeper. Lustig at right back. Danielson, Lindelof, Augustinsson. Maybe Lindelof and Augustinsson a little bit too expensive for me. And the game against Slovakia might be a good opportunity for a clean sheet, but really I'm going to be looking more at Danielson, who is maybe not even 100% nailed, but for 4.5 million, maybe that could work pretty good. Maybe you want to go for Olsen in match day 2 as well. Maybe. So might be some opportunities for some clean sheets there. But further up the pitch, I think there are options, but maybe I don't quite like the prices. So Klaassen on the right wing, I like him. I do quite like him. After the Spain game, maybe I think about grabbing him as a bit of a differential, a bit of a punt. Seb Larsson, I'm not 100% sure he'll play. It's going to be between Seb Larsson and Ekdal. I put Seb Larsson in there though because I think, for me personally, looking at the stats, he just edges it. But I completely agree. You can very much be Ekdal in there. But Ekdal does also have a pretty poor injury record as well. So he probably might even get injured in the warm up, and then Larson comes in, something like that. Olsen, not really interested. Too defensive. Forsberg, maybe slightly too expensive. He's more of a creative player, I guess. And Klaassen, I like him a little bit more, and he's cheaper. Up front, we've got Ishak and Berg. Berg, 8.5 million is just too much. I'm aware that Berg is apparently the manager's favourite at Sweden, so he's going to be like one of the first names on the team sheet supposedly. But it's a lot of money. He's sort of an aging striker, and if I'm completely honest, I don't fully get it. For me, I would play Ishak and Kaizen up front, but apparently if Kaizen is going to play, and I do hope Kaizen does play because I think he's a really good player, apparently he's more likely to actually come on for Ishak than Berg, which maybe makes Ishak a little bit of a risk, or a little bit of a rotation risk there. But Berg, too expensive as well. So overall, there is not too much here for fantasy, but that's what they're going to look like anyway. So Poland are going to line up with a pretty defensive formation with, I guess, 5 defenders and 1 defensive midfielder, and then even the 2 in midfield there, Klich and Zielinski. Maybe Zielinski's an attacking player, but Klich, he can play deeper. So it's all kind of going to be all about Lewandowski and Milik up front. So yeah, that's kind of how that's going to work. There is some real bargains. You guys will be familiar with Bednarek if you watch Premier League football. So he's a nice little bargain there in the game against Slovakia. I don't think Slovakia, we'll come to them in a minute, I don't think they have too much in terms of attacking ways. So maybe there's some opportunities for a clean sheet from Poland here. So yeah, Bednarek I would definitely have a look at. But also, Berezinski plays much further up the pitch, same price. So that could be pretty good. And Rybus is a little bit more of a well-known name, I guess, but slightly more expensive to boast. But although this is how I think typically Poland are going to line up, there is a chance that they also play a 4-4-2 or similar kind of formation as well, or maybe even a... Yeah, no, I think, well, I do think they're going to line up with 2 forwards 100%, but it could go to a 4 4-2, in which case Helik will probably drop out and they'll play Kryjowiak as a defensive midfielder along with maybe Klik, and then maybe slightly further up, maybe you do include Zielinski as a winger in that formation. I don't know. But yeah, I think this is how they've lined up mostly over the last sort of 6 months. So it'll be something like this. Obviously, Lewandowski is an amazing shout. Absolutely go for him. He's going to be the biggest name by far in this team. And he just loves scoring goals for Poland as well. So he would be, definitely one of the players I'd be looking at to get, particularly in the first match today. So yeah, have a look at that. Right, on to Slovakia, and yeah, I'm not 100% convinced this is going to be one of the stronger teams of the tournament. I think this could be the team that finishes bottom of the group, to be honest. They operate on a 4-2-3-1 formation mostly, but they can also switch up and do kind of like a 4-3-2-1, so basically switching the 2 and the 3. But yeah, they'll play with one forward. That's most likely going to be Bosniak. Duda, he's I guess more of a central player, but I really don't know how he fits in other than like where he is now. Lobotka, Kuska, pretty defensive players as well. Skriniar, obviously a fantastic defender, but is he going to be enough? Dubravka, fantastic keeper. Is he going to be enough? So maybe if they can put in good performances, Dubravka and Skriniar, that gives value to some of the other defenders. So Hansko maybe, and Saska. They could offer a little bit more value there for you if you wanted to go for that. But I'm not fully convinced I would want to be going for anyone. Hamsik, I think, is a little bit past it, to be honest. It's a pretty defensive lineup in general. And yeah, I'm not sure really where the goals are coming from in this team. Right, on to the group of death, and we'll talk about the most boring team in the group of death first, I guess. I feel really sorry for Hungary being drawn in this group. This is... yeah, this is not looking good for them, those poor guys. But yeah, for that reason, it's very difficult to suggest to pick any Hungarian players just because they've just got bad fixture after bad fixture after bad fixture before they even start. Look at the Portugal, France, and then Germany. It's going to be a tough ride for Hungary. I do feel for them drawing that group, but it's the luck of the draw. These things happen. I would suggest Fiola there, potential 4 million, so really cheap defender there who is likely to start, but. No, I don't think so. I think Hungary are just going to sit in deep, probably not score many goals, and just hope to nick a goal, maybe nick a result. Yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty defensive showing from them, to be honest. So yeah, not really too much interesting here, although I guess Adams Szalai, because there is two Szalai. Yeah, maybe. I think he is potentially the one to score a goal if there is a goal to be scored. He's a bit of a legend in the Hungarian team. So yeah, this is kind of how they'll line up. But yeah, again, not for fantasy, not really too interesting. On to Portugal. Really expensive back line. Patricio really expensive. Guerrero, Guerrero might even be rotated with this the young left back Mendes. He just looks amazing, by the way. What a player! So he might be rotated even at 6.5 million. So that's just insane. You've got Diaz and Cancelo there, 6 million each. I think if you're going to go for Diaz, just go for Cancelo, because at least if you go for Cancelo, you have the attacking output from a player like that. Cancelo is going to be bombing forward, may even potentially play more like a midfielder in this Portuguese system. So if you're going to go for a defender rather than Diaz, definitely go for Cancelo. And the last position, the cheapest position in the defensive areas for Portugal, and don't get me wrong, I do think we would be wanting to maybe invest in the defence when this first game against Hungary could be a nice opportunity for a defensive player for Portugal to get a few points, clean sheet points maybe. But Pepe occupies that last spot. He is 5 million, but he's the least nailed on out of those defenders, because is it going to be Pepe playing there? Is it going to be Fonte playing there? We don't know. We don't know for sure. Now, I put Pepe down because I do think, if a gun to my head, I have to choose one or the other, who's going to start, I would say Pepe has a slightly more chance of playing than Font. But it's not guaranteed. Into midfield, Danilo, Moutinho, not really offering much in ways of attacking potential, so we'll probably leave them. Silva, yeah, okay, he's obviously one of their better players, but he's a fantasy style player to a degree, yes, but for 8.5, I do much prefer Jota, who I've put on the left wing there. Some people might say, oh, where is Felix? I don't. Obviously, he will get game time and he will be rotated. And maybe Jota comes out in some games, maybe Silva comes out in other games. Maybe probably Bruno Fernandes and Ronaldo are relatively safe. Maybe they switch up formation. Take off Danilo or Moutinho, and then Felix comes in there, depending on who the opposition is and the situation that Portugal find themselves in within a game. So he is going to get game time. He is going to be rotated. But in terms of, you have to pick the most likely 11 to play. And that's kind of what I've been trying to do. And that formation for me involves Jota at left wing. And I think he deserves it as well on form. He's been whenever he's played, he's been looking really good over the last year for Portugal and for Liverpool as well. I know he's had a few injury problems, but aside from that, and he's a familiar name as well. We all quite like Jota. If you're FPL fans, if you're Premier League fans, you'll probably have a lot of appreciation for Jota as well. But for me, obviously, the main guy is Ronaldo, right? Bruno Fernandes, he loses a lot of his appeal, I think, by the fact that Ronaldo is going to hog all set pieces, free kicks and those penalties. I know maybe Bruno should be taking the free kicks and the penalties, but realistically, you can't take it off the boss, Ronaldo. He is the boss. He takes everything, anything that he wants to take, he will. So he is going to be doing all that stuff. And for that reason, Fernandes does lose a little bit of his appeal for a price tag of 10.5. He could still do quite well. I do think he still definitely has the capability to score some points. But Jota you can get for 2 million cheaper, same position as a midfielder, and Ronaldo is obviously the star man, the star of the show, right? He's kind of always going to be that way. But yeah, Jota could maybe be a dark horse there that I quite like the look of. Right, and here is my France lineup. It's kind of maybe not what you were expecting to see on your screen, but it's a 4-1-2-1-2. It's a 4-4-2 diamond, whatever you want to call it. A formation that you rarely see outside of FIFA, right? But yeah, this is how France are likely to line up. So Lloris, I'm pretty confident about this back line, really confident in fact. Lloris in goal, definitely. Hernandez, very attacking left back, that's why he's priced at 6.5 million. Kimpembe, Varane, and then Pavard on the other side, Pavard is the more defensive of the two fullbacks. So when we're talking about what a lot of teams do is, one fullback will bomb forward, the other fullback will actually stay back and tuck in and kind of in many ways turn the defense into a three-man defense and allowing the other fullback to get forward. And Pavard, I think, is kind of more of a natural centre-back, really. Going back historically, he's kind of been morphed into a right-back in many ways. So for that reason, I wouldn't be too interested in him. Kimpembe, obviously, the cheapest in that back line, but all of these players are quite expensive. I do think there's better value to be had in other areas, in other groups, in other teams, particularly as this group is so hard. You're not guaranteed three clean sheets in this group, even if you're France, right? Into midfield, Kante. I know a lot of people are going for Kante. He's a familiar name, and a lot of people will say, "Why would you go for Kante? He's a fairly defensive midfielder. He's not going to score you fantasy points. He's not going to get goals. He's not going to get assists. He's not going to, get maybe 1 point for a clean sheet if you get a clean sheet there. But that's really it. 3 points is the maximum points you're going to get. He's more likely to get a yellow card than he is to get a goal or an assist. So he's more likely to lose you points than gain you points. So it's kind of a really, really, a little bit of a silly pick. But even more so in this France team, he is even more defensive. He has a more defensive role in the France team than he does for Chelsea. In Chelsea, he's actually, he's adapted his game a little bit. He's kind of become a bit of a box-to-box man in many respects. But in this France team, he is just pure CDM, defensive midfielder, whatever you want to call it. So that's where he's going to be sitting, and he's not going to be picking up your points, I'm afraid. So yeah, if you do have Kante in your team, get him out, get someone else. Alaba is 5.5 million. He's a great pick for 5.5 million, so go straight in for that. In terms of the midfield, this is probably where you're thinking things are quite interesting. So this is what France are likely to do. This is what they've kind of been practicing. This is kind of what the plan is, I believe, is to have Pogba as a left central midfielder, Rabiot as a right central midfielder, Griezmann, I guess, as a support striker, and then Benzema, maybe being the number 9, Mbappe, maybe, getting in behind, using his pace, maybe getting out wide and cutting in a little bit. I do think the front three of Benzema, Griezmann, and Mbappe are going to be fairly fluid. But I think this is the basis of what things are going to look like. Arguably, actually, it's a 4-3-3. I get why you might think it could be a 4-3-3. I think it's going to chop and change throughout any game, to be honest. But yeah, this is how roughly it's going to look. And we have got those 3 strikers there. Benzema definitely a very interesting pick. You can't really doubt Mbappe, can you? Rabiot's probably not going to get many points. Pogba's probably not going to be your points guy either. But Griezmann, Benzema, Mbappe, they're going to be your fantasy points guys, right? But yeah, the difficulty is it's a tough group. So maybe we'll actually wait until match day 2, the Hungary game, before we start bringing in some French players. But certainly for match day 1, I would understand why you'd want to go for Mbappe. He'd score against anyone, right? You know, we've got Benzema, who takes on the penalties here, who's had a really good season for Madrid. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure on match day 1, but match day 2, yeah, we'd definitely be looking to get some of those attacking players for sure, and maybe even a defender if we can stretch our budget that far anyway. Right, let's do Germany. I know this video is dragging on. The last team of the video, the last team in Group D. We're in Group D, E, F. We're in Group F. So this is the last team in Group F, the final team of this 2-part video series. And this is what they're going to look like. Tough game against France. So again, make sure you guys are not going in too heavy on Germany straight away. So Neuer in goal, that's a dead cert. In defence, Rudiger and Hummels, I'm pretty confident about that. Left back and right back, people might disagree on this. I think, you know, you can ask one German person, they'll say this. If you ask another German person, they'll say something slightly different. That's certainly been my experience when doing my research on this. Looking at the most likely lineups, I do think it's going to be Klosterman and Halstenberg as the left back, as the fullbacks. They offer a lot of value. So when we going towards this Hungary game for Germany, I do think, by the way, guys, Germany are going to struggle in this group. If I had to guess who drops out, who comes third out of France, Portugal and Germany, I would probably say Germany come third out of those 3 teams. So they are going to have a tough time, as anyone is going to have a tough time in this group. But yeah, really nice value on the fullbacks there. So definitely keep an eye on that. Joshua Kimmich is going to be playing as a defensive midfielder, in my opinion. Gundogan and Goretzka will be operating as the central midfielders, with maybe Kroos coming in for Goretzka, potentially Kroos coming in for Gundogan as well, but more likely for Goretzka. And then up front, we're going to have Sane, Havertz and Gnabry. I think there's obviously potential for Müller to come in, and if Müller comes in, maybe things switch up. Maybe things go to a 4-2-3-1 formation. Müller in behind the central striker or something like that. Maybe even Müller playing out wide, maybe in place of Havertz. Possibly. Not sure. There's options that Germany have. They have a pretty strong squad in that respect, so there is options. But the one thing I want to point out to you guys, and I know we're probably not going to want to go all in on Germany in the first match day, right? But Serge Gnabry is listed as a midfielder, so he gets points as midfielders gets points, extra point for a goal, extra point for a clean sheet. All those bonuses of being a midfielder, but actually he will be playing as the central striker for Germany. So that is a really beneficial thing to have an out of position player in your fantasy team. So definitely, if I'm going to go for a player in the attacking side of this team, Gnabry has definitely got my number. Goretzka, it looks very good value if he can continue his good form that he showed for Germany over the last few years. And obviously, like I said, I like the fullbacks because I like their price a lot. Klosterman's probably the one I would go for, who's probably slightly more guaranteed of a start there. And oh my god, I believe this is my longest video ever, or it's at least close to my longest video ever, it must be. But there we go, guys. Part 2 of the pretty much 1 hour long extravaganza of predicting every single lineup at Euros and looking at them from a fantasy perspective. Wow, what a journey. Now, hopefully, guys, I've got most of this right. If you do think that things are going to be slightly different, of course, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say and your justification for it. But hopefully, we're mostly right here today. But yes, do please like the video. I really appreciate that. Subscribe as well if you're new around here. Obviously, this has been a lot of work, but hopefully this is going to be so useful. You know, like I said at the end of last video, making this video has been so useful for me. Since I started making this 2-part series, my fantasy team has changed so much because it's opened my eyes to so many things, and I hope it does the same for you guys. I really do. But there we have it, guys. Thank you once again for watching. If you want to join my mini league, the link is in the description for Euro Fantasy mini league there. If you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, those links are in the description as well. But aside from that, thank you so much for watching this crazy video, and I'll see you later, mates. Bye bye.